How's it going, super friends? So, I'm not gonna lie, I did have an incredibly big production that I put together to review the DC Universe animated movie, The Death of Superman. It was something that I put, at least 2 days work into with video clips and sound clips and stuff like that. And that's something that I really wanted to do for this review. And then I decided to just scrap it. The reason is because I sort of wanted to leave a lot of meat on the bone, and I felt like what I had done was a little bit too spoilerish for what I'm comfortable with. Now, I know with the Krypton series, because it's episodical, those tended to be half spoiler and half not, and same thing with my comic book reviews, but I enjoyed this so much that what I really want is for everyone to actually take the time to go and see The Death of Superman, because it's kind of a masterpiece in its own right. And let me explain. For those of you who were around when I was, in the 90s. Oh, I just, pardon the fish tank noise. I moved the fish tank down here just recently, so you might hear trickling. For those of you who are around when the original storyline of The Death of Superman first began, 1992, there was a certain set of events, and it was a huge deal, and it was really big for a lot of us, and it was a masterfully created story for the time. And then the reign of Superman was also so amazing. In my opinion, it's still some of the best comic book stories that I've read, like, ever, to date. And then there's been different Doomsday stories kind of since then. One where Brainiac steals the body of Doomsday from the end of time, where Superman and Wave Rider had dropped Doomsday off, where he couldn't regenerate and evolve, a way to better himself then. In other words, how Doomsday works, for those of you who don't know, he was basically an experiment that took place on the planet Krypton before Kryptonians even lived there. And it's technically because of Doomsday that the planet Krypton became inhabitable. He killed off a whole bunch of the wild, vicious creatures that lived there. The scientists that kept trying to build this ultimate, fighter, this ultimate creature, they would toss him out there into this really inhospitable environment with these creatures, and if it wasn't the environment, it would be the creatures. They would just rip him to shreds, and they would go and collect the DNA, and then within like a day or two clone another one, and they just kept doing that. And this happened for a long time. And so Doomsday, what started off as an innocent baby, had evolved into something that not only could eventually withstand the atmosphere out there and the planet itself, but also those creatures. And eventually it hunted down and killed absolutely every creature out there. And then it went to the big dome that the scientists were in, smashed a hole in it, and killed all the scientists. Because think of the mental damage that you would have if this was your entire being, was to survive and to hate those scientists and see everything as a threat to your own life and be filled with that kind of hatred. So Doomsday is actually a fairly deep, complex character. He's not just a throwaway character. Doomsday is an excellent character. But then there were other stories where, again, Brainiac had gone to the end of time to snatch Doomsday's body before there was nothing there to snatch, so that he could put his mind in Doomsday's body. And it was very important he got him just before his body disappeared, because there would have been nothing, to grab. He figured that with his brain inside Doomsday's body, he would be this unstoppable force. And truth be known, Brainiac probably would have been an unstoppable force inside of the body of Doomsday, which technically can't die now, because that which kills him, he evolves, to destroy it, to become its better, which again is why Superman and Wave Rider, during Superman's next and second big encounter with Doomsday, they had to take him to the end of time. So they tried to amalgamate all of that, and so it's kind of a masterpiece for that, because it actually works together quite seamlessly. Not only that, but they also chose to take aspects of the New 52 Superman. So when New 52 Superman died, there was a specific quote that he said to Lois about being a very lucky guy, a very lucky man for being with Lois, and they included that in Superman's death scene. And they also included the fight scene as opposed to the original battle in Doomsday's first appearance, where he fought the Justice League of 92, which consisted of Fire, Ice, Booster Gold, Blood, Wind, and who the heck? Guy Gardner. Yes, sorry, drew a blank. He wasn't a Green Lantern at the time. He had a yellow lantern ring. He trounced that League of the Day. And then, but they had Doomsday fighting the current Justice League of the DC animated universe, which was the Aquaman, Wonder Woman, Flash, Green Lantern, Batman, Martian Manhunter, Cyborg, Hawkman. Well, Hawkman really wasn't in the league until now, as far as I remember. They just kind of put him in there. But the point is, he fought this league. And that was clearly from the Brainiac-ish kind of story, where that Doomsday with Brainiac's mind did fight the League of that day. And they kind of found a way to take all of these wonderful aspects of these stories and kind of mash it all together in such a way that actually really fit quite well, in my opinion. And it served the DC animated universe well, because you have to remember, they've already built this animated universe. So whatever happens in the animated universe has to happen within the confines of the things that are the animated universe. So in the animated universe, for example, Superman was with Wonder Woman. And so in this movie, they acknowledge that he's not with her anymore, but now he's with Lois. So that they acknowledge the old, but they also go, hey, guess what? In the story, Superman and Lois are actually together, and we can't have Superman die in a Superman versus Doomsday story and not have the crucial Lois and Superman moments. That's like not having the cape hanging off the stick blowing in the wind in the streets of Metropolis. There's just certain things you can't take away from it and have the same impact of the story, with the dead Man of Steel laying in the sobbing arms of his love, Lois Lane. It just wouldn't have worked with Wonder Woman quite the same way. Another very impressive feat that actually makes me feel like this is kind of masterfully done is the fact that they have to introduce all four of the main characters from the next animated movie that comes directly after this, is directly attached, being the reign of Superman. So they have to introduce Hank Henshaw, who goes on to become the Cyborg Superman, the Superman clone, who goes on to become Superboy. He's from Catalyst, the Catalyst Project. And they also have to introduce John Henry Irons, who becomes Steel. And they have to introduce the Eradicator. And the thing is, the introduction of some of these characters is kind of well before issue number 75 of Superman, the Eradicator being first, and there was a whole awesome big storyline. And then from that kind of leads into Hank Henshaw, because of the battle between the Eradicator and Superman leads to the death eventually of his wife and his friends and family that were on the ship with him. And so he blames Superman for their death completely, even though it wasn't Superman's fault. And so they're introduced, and then again, Superboy and John Henry Irons are introduced. Not quite the same way as the comic books. Like the whole Hank Henshaw thing is really quick. It's fast. Like it happens like bang, done. Right? Like Doomsday strapped to the front of a meteorite heading for Earth, smash right into Hank Henshaw's ship, killing them all. And it's not until the very end of the movie when we see like 4 end cutscenes that kind of let us know the reign of Superman's coming. That being, when the Eradicator takes Superman's body back to the fortress, and we see the Superboy clone escaping from Catalyst. Only he's not wearing the classic Superboy uniform. He's actually wearing what he wore in the New 52. So I'm sure they're going to mash those two characters together to come up with this movie's Superboy. We also see Hank Henshaw as the Cyborg Superman flying into the camera, presumably back to Earth to take his revenge on Superman. It's really kind of neat how they actually put all of them in there in a comprehensive yet simple but complete way. So I found that to be incredibly impressive too. There were some things that were very different about this movie, aside from the fact that they had to kind of try and take all of the stories and mash them together, and take all the time frame and mash it together in a way that made sense and told a good story. So aside from that, there were also other differences in that, you've got characters in different places at different times, and different things are happening in the timeline that just didn't exist during the original death of Superman. And little different events, right? Like Superman and Lois are sitting in the Ace of Clubs, right? Bibbo's his pub, which, by the way, Bibbo makes a magnificent appearance in this movie. I love Bibbo Bobowski. I wish that we had a figure of Bibowski to add to the good guys wall of my DC Universe classics, because I just can't get enough Bibbo. They're in the Ace of Clubs, and that's when Superman, or Clark, tells Lois that he's Superman, where in the comic books he doesn't tell her in the Ace of Clubs in the original story. He tells her in their apartment, and I'm Superman, takes off the glasses and opens the shirt, and Lois is pissed at him because she's like, you kept the secret from me all this time, you were lying to me, why didn't you tell me? You're supposed to love me and you didn't tell me, what the heck? And he's all like, I wanted you to love Clark first, not Superman, and then I didn't know how to tell you because I wanted to keep you safe, which is my number one priority. It didn't really happen like that. It was more like, hey, we're at the Ace of Clubs. Sorry I brought you here. We can leave if you don't want to. No, that's fine. We can stay here. Okay. And then they begin to talk, and Lois is expressing how she's like, you feel like you're withholding something of yourself from me. And you know, and he's like, well, we got to talk. And she's like, see, I knew it. I mean, you know, we can break up, you know, but I'm still, you know, going to be going to the office every day. It's one of those kind of conversations. Strong woman, awkward man, that kind of thing. And then he tells her, and she doesn't believe him at first, and then she ends up believing him, and then he flies off to go and deal with Doomsday. Completely different scenario than anything that we saw in the comic books in that original story. So there are definitely differences in this movie. But it works together in such a way that it's fun. You know, the battle with the League in that small town with Doomsday, before Superman gets there, it's a whole lot of fun. I mean, I always wonder, what would it be like if the League actually fought the real Doomsday, not the Brainiac Doomsday? And so they gave us kind of an interesting idea of what that would have looked like, right? With, of course, aside from Wonder Woman, who puts up a darn good fight and takes to fight Doomsday in Metropolis, which is actually a little bit, I think, of mashing together the Rebirth story where Wonder Woman actually ends up fighting Doomsday in Metropolis with Superman, so it's not completely accurate. We see the only other person that comes out of it fairly unscathed, because Cyborg's eyes hanging out. Green Lantern and the Flash and Hawkman are out cold. They are kaput, and the Martian Manhunter gets tossed into a gas station where it blows up and he's all on fire and stuff, and everyone knows that, like, there's two things about the Martian Manhunter, right? Fire, bad, Oreo cookies, good. Aside from all the phasing through and the shape-shifting and the, you know, the powers and stuff like that. And so the League just gets trounced. Aquaman gets flung into a building, like, face first. The whole thing is just, it's a mess. Like, clearly they've never faced something like this before, and they faced Darkseid together, and this was bad. And Batman, which is the long way on getting to it, comes out of the whole thing with, like, he's obviously battered. He's got some blood and stuff. Comes out of it with a dislocated arm, and it's like, the guy doesn't have any powers, or ring, or nothing, and he comes out of it with a dislocated arm, yet the Cyborg is all, like, knackered beyond belief with his eyeball hanging out, you know, and it's like, why? Because he's Batman, I guess, right? I mean, he's Batman. And so, anyway, that was kind of neat to see the League facing off against Doomsday as well. In the end, there's this big battle, obviously, in Metropolis. And I'm leaving a lot of meat on the bone. You can watch this and you're going to be like, oh, Brad didn't talk about that, because I'm leaving a lot of meat on this bone. In the end, after a giant battle in Metropolis, just like with the comic books, a different kind of battle, but a big battle in Metropolis nonetheless, takes place at night, not during the day. They fight till the very end. Superman ends up, I'm not going to wreck it for you, but I'm just going to tell you, when I saw how Superman killed Doomsday, I laughed out loud. I'm not kidding. I didn't just like, oh, I LOL'd. I laughed literally out loud. Had to stop it. I had to wipe the pop from my face and then go back and watch it again and be like, I wasn't expecting that. I was not expecting it to end that way. Just go watch it yourself. I don't want to wreck it for you. And then, of course, the League shows up at the end, and they're standing over the crater, and they're like, yay, we got here too late, and now he's dead. And they have the big funeral thing at the end that kind of matches just a little bit of the Man of Steel movie with the military carrying the coffin. Just, there's a whole mishmash of different things and stories and stuff all mashed into one. And I thought that the storytelling was complete and comprehensive. We got to see a quippy, positive, smiling, spit curly, you know, Superman, and we got to see that relationship between Superman and Lois in this movie, which before we didn't see that. It was Wonder Woman, and I found myself really impressed by it. And I think if you're a DC fan, a DC Animated Universe fan, and especially if you're a Superman fan, if you don't go into this, please don't go into this expecting it to be anything else other than a really mishmashed adaptation of all kinds of stuff to tell one good story. If you go into it like that and go, you know what, the comics were awesome. I loved them. Great time. But this is going to be this. That was that. This is this. Let's just enjoy it for what it is. I really do think that you will absolutely enjoy this, because I can't think of anything I didn't like. Sometimes the animation could be a little bit cheap looking, but it's like that with most of the animated DC movies to this point. I think you will like it. I really do think you'll like it. I give this a big seal of approval and totally suggest that if you haven't seen it, I've left more than enough meat on the bone for you to go and watch this. I haven't told you about Doomsday's evolution and how his power works. I haven't even touched on that and how that's connected to other things. I've left a lot of meat. So please do yourself a favor and go watch the Death of Superman animated feature. The new one, not the old one that came out, maybe 10 years ago or 8 years ago. Watch the new one because it's brilliant. Anyway, that's all I have to say today. Thank you so much for watching. Sorry that there's nothing special in this video. It's just my stupid head talking. But I've got some really important stuff I'm doing over the next week. It's not even really video related that I've really got to get done. So it is what it is. And I felt like this would be a much better video anyway compared to what I had put together. And believe it or not, I scrapped the entire thing. Cuts, edits, footage, pictures, gone. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Go watch the movie if you haven't. And if you have anything to say, leave it down in the comments below. Leave a like if you've liked the video. And if you think you might want to become someone who is a regular viewer of my channel or even a semi-regular viewer of my channel, then just hit the subscribe button. Remember to ding the bell, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching. Have an awesome day, super friends. Take care till we meet again. Bye-bye.